reach out to alarm bells. Please tell me how to get that on my phone.
Alright, so
Now that something stuck in my
if
head.
you're not here for historical costuming or historical adjacent costuming, you're in the wrong place, but if you are here for that, welcome. I'll introduce myself and then we'll go start from the end and each person's going to introduce themselves and a little bit of their background on why they should be talking about historical or historically adjacent costume. So my name's Alex Bender. I've worked the Renaissance Fair for about 15 years doing Scott, Irish, and Germans, where doing the research had to happen in order to get my outfit approved. That was a requirement. And so it became a fun joy to then also go, hey, my wife and I, we want to do Full Metal Alchemist. What era is Full Metal Alchemist? And we can talk about that and go, oh, well, we need this fabric for Full Metal Alchemist to happen, and how what we learned doing historically accurate pieces can then translate into not historically accurate, but historically adjacent, so that you get the right thing. That's something that is a big passion of mine from cosplay.
My name is Baird, and I also came up through the Renaissance Festival. I started in 1988, so you can do your own math on that. Retired in 2021. I ran the costume shop out there for a few years, so I was the person that people had to go to get their costumes approved. And then I've done quite a bit of research in the theater costuming realm as well, and historical costuming. But after retiring from Renaissance Festival, while working out there, I needed an outlet. So I just started doing mashups. And we did Revolutionary Super Friends one year for Masquerade. It was so much fun. And that just kind of started, that really is what sparked I started just going, ooh, I do this, ooh, I do that. And that research led me to realize how, how I can play with, once you know what the different conventions of each time period are, how you can play with that to create something that is not only fun for you, but when you start geeking out with your friends, you can be like, and so because of this that happened historically, we then did this with the Marvel character. So that's kind of where my groove comes from.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Merritt. I have been doing historical costuming for about 25 years. I was active in the Victorian Society when they had a chapter here in the Twin Cities. I've done events with the Living History Society, and there's a lot of other groups that like to do fun things. Right now I'm with a group called the Shenanigans Society, and we are a historical focused costuming group that does events around town. So my journey through historical costume really is about starting out wanting to make really fun, cute things to wear at the Renaissance Festival, and then to go to the ball, and I just got deeper into making it historically accurate as I went on. So the farther I went on in costuming, the more I thought, okay, but how would they actually have done this in the time? And historic costuming for me is a lot about the experience of making it as well as the experience of wearing it. So in the experience of making it, I like to use as many historical techniques as I can, given the era that I'm doing. If I'm doing the same stitches that an 18th century dressmaker would have done, I feel that that's an important connection for me in the process of that costume. So the creation is as important as the wearing to me. And I've been teaching sewing classes in the Twin Cities for about 13 years, including historical costume. I've taught some historical costume classes. I've taught how to make your own corset classes. I have students who have come to me and said, I just want to make an Outlander costume. And I said I have a particular student who, she said, I just want to make a real quick Outlander costume. And I'm like, well, okay, but you should just hand sew the eyelets on the stays. That's the only thing you need to hand sew, just the eyelets on the stays. And so then that sent her into the deepest rabbit hole ever. She now hand sews everything. She won first prize at the state fair last year in the historical costume category for a yellow silk process. And I'm so proud of her. So, yeah, so that's what I do.
Right on.
That's awesome. I'm skazka. I would say a history person in general, was interested in kind of the history of fashion and costume, but I didn't get into sewing historical, kind of my own historical clothes until COVID lockdown, where I had a go-to answer for now every time I'm like, oh, I'm working on this, I'm working on that, my mom goes, where are you going to wear it? Because I am not a member of societies, I don't do, because she was a historical, living history person, so for her, where you wear it, what you're using it to demonstrate is very important, where for me, making the thing is the joy in itself. But I had a lot of free time, and I had a lot of free time to do hand sewing, so that was kind of my entree into that whole sphere. But I do have a lot of, kind of from an art, and especially from a fan art POV, kind of the idea of understanding how a garment works in order to draw it on a character is a great way to fall ass backwards into historical costuming, and I feel that connection with both the mashups and kind of X but make it historical, or folks doing, you know, I just saw somebody do a really wonderful kind of traditional Lebanese women's attire, but mashed up with the Silmarillion, where they were like, ooh, I wanna combine two things that I know a lot about, and I wanna use that to communicate something about this character. And I love that kind of thing with all my heart. So that's a big part of what I look for when I'm both as a viewer and as a sewist, kind of spotting where somebody really brought their expertise into play.
Oh my gosh, I have to follow these really cool people. Hi, I'm Kendrick. I use him pronouns, and my shtick, my reason for being on this panel is because I love to do semi-homemade, and I love to do gender bends of Disney princesses. I was married yesterday. It was a toss-up between that and gender bend Rapunzel, but it was just too hot for a wig and velvet leggings, so I picked a wig and a wool kilt because I make excellent life decisions. But yeah, so my thing is, if I try to make something that is too book or movie accurate, I lose my sense of fun. I get way too nitpicky about details. So that's how the Merman Winter Soldier was born, and a number of other chaotic things. I'll be gender bent Alphabet tomorrow from Wicked, and then on Sunday I will actually be Baker Peta from The Hunger Games, which is like my only one that is somewhat aligned with what it looks like in the movie. But that was easy. It was work boots and pants and an apron, and I like to cook, so that was perfect. Yeah, I've been going to Renaissance festivals since I was 12 and loved costuming. Started with the easy, cheap Halloween costumes from the internet and started cutting them apart and sewing them to other things and editing things and making things fit differently as I grew and changed and my body changed in multiple ways because being trans is fun. Who doesn't want to go through puberty twice? It's good. But yeah, so like cutting and pasting and hand sewing and machine sewing. I was also a theater kid, which shocks everybody who knows me. And I play sports, which is also strange, but that's very fun. But again, like with the theater aspect of that, where a lot of my co-panelists make things that look like they belong in historical eras, I am really great at like shortcuts. I don't line things. I don't like to do buttonholes, so I will sew things shut. It's whatever works, whatever works. I'm here for a good time, and it's very fun.
To be fair, having worked there long enough, whatever works is actually more important.
Yes.
We're on stage, we're putting on a show
Yes.
for people who are coming to that show. So sometimes whatever works is far more important.
And the
Hey,
historical
120
accuracy is
pounds.
incredible.
Yeah.
I
always
love when I
thought
see someone who was in
real
like,
sewing.
I think your name was Mary. Yeah, you're on our fantasy panel. Your outfits are top tier incredible. I can see the work that goes into them. So like both and, very much both and.
All right, so I did come prepared with a few topics, but I think we could start the conversation off with questions. So that way we can fall back to the topics in case there's more pressing concerns that the audience might have. So, all right, we're starting over here.
With the sad demise of Joanne's, where do you recommend people go for textiles and sewing missions?
So many answers for this.
So there's the S.R. Harris answer, if you are in the Twin Cities area.
What if you live 5 hours away?
So are there other places 5 hours away that people access?
I'm a thrift store person.
Okay.
I get my fabric from thrift stores. As a matter of fact,
Thrift store. This is a tablecloth. This is a bed sheet. This is also a bed sheet. Most of the fabrics that are in here are leftovers from other days.
I think we're made from the same bed sheets then.
You know what, we may be, yeah.
So, yeah, thrift stores, but you have, I think nowadays what we have to do is we have to have a plan, and that's the sucky part. Is that you really do need to kind of plan ahead and keep a running list of what you need so that you can go find it in the places where you're going to be. Sewing supplies, Whack.
Yes.
The dumbest sounding name in the world, but they will get you bias tape in a day.
Oh, all right.
Well,
I was just thinking.
W-A-K.
And I also second Wawak. I just want to throw in there though, I know SR Harris is fantastic. There are so many great little local fabric stores in the Twin Cities that I really want to encourage you guys to check out. I also thrift a lot of stuff, that's fantastic, but if you really need something that's high quality, you need to be specific. I've worked for Treadle Yard Goods for 12 years. Right now I'm working for a shop called So Inviting, which is on Snelling and Highland in St. Paul. There's the Sewing Lounge on Selby in St. Paul. There's Lakes Makery in Minneapolis. There's Knit and Bolt in Minneapolis. So
Isn't the sewing lounge a pattern place? They have a pattern printer too?
They do, and also I think most of these shops do have PDF pattern printers now. I know the shop I'm working for is So Inviting. We do have a large format PDF pattern printer. You can just email us the pattern. Sewing Lounge does too. Lakes Makery does as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
Do not tape your patterns together. Your time is more important than that. Pay $4.
So I beg to differ because I love to suffer, but would folks be interested if we did this, if putting together a list of both online fabric stores, kind of local fabric stores, and places to get your patterns printed? So I'm like, I've got a whole folder on my bookmarks bar where it's just fabric. Especially for, because I love a bargain. I love buying stuff that is limited editions, shall we say. The kind of situation where somebody's like, oh, I have 10 yards of this left, and it's like $6 a yard. And I'm like, I'll take all 10, don't mind if I do.
A lot of that on Etsy.
Yeah, but I'm also a big fan of estate sales and in general, kind of reusing, recycling, and yeah, the textile centers, Stashery, they recently opened both a very donation-based kind of stash busting and stash reinforcing, where I was able to donate a lot of fabric that is either for eras that I don't sew for, or just types of garment I'm never going to sew. I'm never going to sew the beautiful flannel nightgown I thought I was going to make with this, but somebody else will. And then if you can rock up and find really, really beautiful fabric, sometimes in irregular cuts, sometimes in kind of large quantities that somebody clearly had a project in mind and never got around to it, but it's a great way to be surprised.
Sometimes it's a project that's half done.
Oh yeah, which I love a UFO, I love an unfinished object.
Yeah.
There's a lot of online fabric stores, but in terms of historical fabrics, if you've never been to online fabric markets, they carry like striped silk dupiones and linens, and like it's not a large selection of fabric, but their selection is very specifically different from everything else. So yeah, like because it's really hard to find printed silk dupione. Like the only thing they carry anymore is solids, and so yeah, that was fun.
If you're looking for online historical, William Booth Draper and Burnley and Trowbridge, also historically focused online fabric shops.
I wanted to also give a shout out to Tiny Apple Fabric. It's in Anoka. It's, I think, the one that's right near Avant Garden bookstore. So if you like books, coffee, and fabric, that's a great place to exist as a person. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Two other places, one for accessory and sewing items is the Manhattan Wardrobe Supply. They are in New York, and if Wayback doesn't have it, quite often they do. And secondly, I hear a lot of people say, I don't want to go to a quilting store. Well, let me tell you, I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. Woo! We have a kick-ass quilting store, but called the Electric Needle, and they carry odd and unusual cotton, not just traditional cotton. Since the death of Joanne, there are 3 other stores that have opened in our area. And one of which has said we are not going to carry cotton, and we are not going to carry, we are only going to do dress supply and dressmaking. And the other of which, but I hear so many people say, I don't want to go to a quilting store. They have needles, thread, bobbin. They have those notions. They are locally owned. They are in your neighborhood. Their hours aren't going to be till 9 o'clock on a Sunday, But please, if we don't support these local places, they're not gonna make it. And not that they recognize me when I walk in, but they might.
Another one too, if you're not afraid of chaos, is Facebook Marketplace. I've gotten some good stashes from other people who are destashing, and now I need to destash.
I've had a really good luck with eBay.
Yes.
People
Good lots.
that, they inherit their grandparents' sewing room, and then they just sell it all off on eBay.
Quick question here, or actually announcement. Some of you might know me as the Dream Stitcher. I'd like to welcome and invite all of you to the Customers Conclave Party. We're open from 2 to 4 this afternoon, and 9 to 1 a.m. tonight and tomorrow night. Come in, drink tea, crunch cookies, talk costume. I have a lot of reference books, especially historical ones, that you guys might want to take a look at. So you're all certainly welcome. I've been doing this for 40 years, and I'm still learning new things. So come and spark some new ideas off each other. 5117.
5117, costuming, what was it, costuming?
Conclave.
Fine.
Just go to 5 and you'll see the sign.
So a lot of people get into historical costuming through various means, but very popular recently is through the method of online historical costuming influencers. Your Bernadette Banners, your Rachel Macy's, and so on and so forth. Some of these people are great, some of them are not so grand. Who are the bad eggs of historical costuming? Who should you not follow in the footsteps of for historical costuming? Is there anybody who you saw and just said, hey, listen, they sound really nice, but they don't know Jack. Don't listen to her. She doesn't know.
I hate to say it, I'm not really familiar with, I can only recommend the good ones that I know of.
Yeah, same. I feel like there are a lot of popular folks doing costume influencing that some of them that I followed back in our LiveJournal days. Anyone shout out for LiveJournal? That
of
have
historical.
now gone to Instagram. But mostly I find that if people are talking, if they know what they're talking about, they're going to stick around. The ones that have stuck around, I have not seen a lot of people I wouldn't recommend. It's only about whose presentation style I find to be pleasing, and some of the really popular ones, maybe they're not my cup of tea, but I wouldn't say they're spouting misinformation.
Always fact check.
Yeah, I will say, pardon me, one of the areas where I have noticed both misinformation and kind of attitudes that I don't think are optimal for historical costuming as a hobby, they tend to kind of circulate, when there's a group, whether that group is a bunch of friends who get together and have a group chat or a Facebook community, you will get folks where something has become kind of the accepted dogma that isn't really rooted in anything. And that goes, I've noticed that going back to, it's always fun when you go kind of archaeologically through some of these Wayback Machine SCA pages, and somebody will be like, it is not true that they did not do this in the past. People will tell you that, but it's not true. And I'm like, oh, I've never heard that before. That's, somebody is reacting to something. And you get a lot of cases of either folks kind of projecting their own assumptions or working from sources that are not necessarily up to date. The one way that you can kind of sniff out somebody who's BSing their history knowledge, if they're willing to cop that they don't know certain things, or being willing to allow that they're not an expert in every imaginable kind of historical fashion, being able to kind of yield the floor to costumers where they do actually have an expertise that I lack, which is hard for hobbyists and people who are legitimately used to being the most knowledgeable person in the room on something. That works great if I'm alone, but it does not work if I'm in this room where I'm confident that there are plenty of you who know a lot more about like French scenes than I do, or about specific areas of historical costuming. Just kind of looking out for folks getting really dug in on either fallacies or kind of assumptions about what is historical and what isn't historical that they can't back up with anything. There was a historical costume group that did kind of Dickens Fair type stuff, where it's on their Facebook group, somebody got really dug in on, well, you see, like, it's not historically accurate in your living history of Prussia to have spouses call each other by their first names, because you see in this one Dickens novel, the husband and wife call each other, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. So, as you can see, nobody ever did that, and it's inaccurate to have, call your spouse by their first name if you're in your historical attire. And it's like, well, the problem is that that's a joke. In the context of the novel, like, that's the joke, is that it's funny to be calling your spouse, Mr. by his full legal name like you're strangers. But that kind of situation where if you spot that, you can be like, hey dog, I don't think that that's true. The way that people react to getting presented sources that contradict them is kind of going to be your barometer for how likely they are to stick around in the hobby and whether there's somebody I would want to keep following. And this is purely personal, but if somebody has constantly, super spotless, immaculate, gorgeously tailored luxury fabric impressions, and they're never ever talking about like, yeah, I made the sloper for this out of a bed sheet, or I made this out of candy wrappers because I thought it would be funny. If they're never kind of starting to talk about the nitty-gritty of costuming, that's not somebody I'm gonna follow, because they're living a very different life than I am. And that includes some of them more, like, it can be very glamorous to be like, every photo you see me in, I'm looking immaculate and perfect Regency dress, but that indicates that we're in this hobby for different reasons, and that is not my thing.
That's something that I just want to really quick interject when you're talking about the historical accuracy thing. And so when I was in charge of people's costumes for the Renaissance Festival, I had a list of guidelines. I was like, these are more like guidelines. But my one rule was, if you can show me a historical cut of somebody wearing something that you want to wear, I will let you wear it. And that was my rule. And I actually had people who were able to back it up. And I was like, so here's the thing. Keep this with you in your pouch. So when somebody from SCA comes up and challenges you, you can just show it to them and there it is. Because it may not be common, but if someone did it, it's historical.
Another piece of that too is to really listen to marginalized folks. Like, I love TikTok, I really do. And there was this whole debacle with folks who like to cosplay Vikings, appropriating lines from some indigenous cultures of the Americas. Sure, there was cultural sharing, that was not part of it. We don't have that as part of the historical record. And even, so indigenous folks were like, don't do that. And then the folks from Norway were like, we did not do that, don't do that. And then the TikTok cosplayers were like, we're gonna do it anyway. And it's just like, can you flip and not? So, strong feelings on dog whistles as well.
So beware of always and never as well
Yes.
with historical stuff.
Yes.
Think of that. If there's no always and there's no never in historical research. Here's the trends. Here's one singular example I found of a super weird thing, and so on.
I also
So just real quick, I was gonna say on the materials aspect, if you make friends with your local store, they will generally buy things for you that they wouldn't buy from a normal store.
Nice.
I know I order things in for people all the time that I'm like, I don't know what this is, but okay. So make friends with your local shop owner. I'm in Bolt. Hi, we're in
Where are you again?
Northeast Minneapolis.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Now we're coming back.
Make friends with your local small
And then
person
small
owners too. Because
Yes.
they all make it backwards.
Yeah.
Want the mic, you can use it. If you want to go out, go ahead.
So I did historical reenacting. Let me second William Luke Draper and Burnley and Trowbridge. I've actually worked and talked with the owners of those businesses. They very carefully curate their patterns, their books, their fabrics, and their notions. My sewing kit upstairs has a stash of cotton twill tape of different sizes and colors that you use for all the fancy little caps and, of course, laces and stuff like that. The owners will help you if you email them with questions. They're really great. So, and they're small business owners. William Luke Draper is based out of the Chicago, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois area. Burnley and Trowbridge is on the East Coast, but they do a lot of historical events on the eastern half of the U.S. So if you happen to be traveling and you see a rendezvous or a military reenactment, check it and see if they're there.
address the, I'm very big on small business, but I also want to acknowledge that not everybody is financially able to patronize shops that are these specialized shops, because what, you know, they need to make a living too. It is going to be more expensive. You're not going to find the joy in prices at these places. So just be aware of that and know that when you are shopping for them, you should be shopping for the things that if it matters, you should plan that extra expense. If it doesn't matter, maybe then you can hit some of those thriftier places. So just know that, you know, you got to find that balance.
Could you briefly talk about patterns in historical costuming? It seems like it's hard to find bed sheets that are portraying colors sometimes. So, like, how do we judge if a pattern is historically appropriate or not?
I was all ready to jump in with pattern drafting, so thank you for clarifying.
Yes, I was going to say. Are you asking about fabric? Are you talking about patterns on the fabric themselves?
Like printed designs or woven
print
designs in the fabric.
Yes, whether the print is historical.
Get a textile book with swatches. There are a few great ones in print right now. I've got one that's like 19th century in textiles. It shows various categories of woven designs and printed designs, roller printed designs, tells you whether they were manufactured for apparel or home decoration, and then it breaks them down by decade or specific year if it's known. So then you take that, I think it's a lot about training your eye to see those things. Like chintzes, for example, like 18th century chintzes. I love an 18th century chintz. I love a modernized 18th century chintz too. But to kind of differentiate the real historic ones versus the ones that have been modernized, it's just kind of about looking at lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of examples, and then you kind of learn what to look for. And you can even bring your textile book with you when you go shopping and compare. Does this look like this? Yeah.
I was going to say, like, there is that aspect of training your eye and kind of looking, you know, this print might be perfect, but is it on the right scale? Which is, and I will say, like, this is historical costuming beyond accuracy. Like, you can be as whimsical as you want to be, especially if you're doing it with a purpose. But I do think that it's so exciting when you find something where it's like, oh damn, like I'm walking through S.R. Harris and it's like, well, this would be perfect for this specific end. Or finding people actually block printed fabrics is really exciting. There's a shout out to the Etsy user, it's Choke Gazelle, who does like late medieval, early modern Ottoman block printed fabrics, and they're gorgeous. They're really nice cottons, and they are. She's doing a totally different kind of historical impression than I am, but they are perfect for my wheelhouse in the second half of the 18th century. And that kind of situation of, I didn't think I should be finding somebody who coincidentally is in kind of the same zone as I am, but working on a totally different continent. But you can find some stuff where it's like a lucky strike.
Another thing too is to look abroad when possible, because sometimes we get so sucked into like our American exceptionalism that we forget that people around the world also do historical cosplays and cultural cosplays, or not just cosplays but costumes. Yes, I'm very in my wheels with the cosplay. But like sometimes, again, I'll seek out social medias from folks in Europe or Asia or Africa or wherever I'm looking at that time, and it's really fun to just like compare notes and geek out together and talk about some of the overlap. So, and there's other projectors out there. It's really fun.
One thing I learned from school, I'm going to school for a costume design degree, is that the Janet Arnold books are amazingly good resources. The books themselves are kind of expensive, but you can borrow them from the library, and they have patterns ranging years from I believe the 1500s to the 1900s. Ton of historical dresses, blouses, doublets, anything. They're really good resources.
What was the name again?
That's Janet Arnold.
Janet Arnold.
So she actually went into vaults of actual extant clothing from the period and used those to create her patterns.
They're all amazing. I have one qualm, they don't fit on a shelf.
Yeah.
I don't know why they chose that long format to print them in, but we're stuck in it.
And it's like, how we had to improvise this section of the garden because it was corroded like body juice.
Yeah. Yeah, because like she got really excited when she could find the backs of things because the bodies are lying. Yeah,
Right, she's very cavalier about, oh, we took this grave dress, and
Yeah.
the lining has rotted away with the corpse, oh
Who doesn't
well.
love casual grave robbery?
I have a book waiting for me that is specifically kind of reconstructing garments found on bog bodies, and I'm really freaking excited to have my bog outfit go in. But I feel like that's being able to find somebody who fills in those gaps. And I will say, I will give a shout out to especially small kind of local regional museums or museums with like a specific focus, like the LA, I can't remember, like LACMA, LACMA. They have a bunch of both the patterns themselves are kind of drafted out for your use once you adjust them to your own proportions and whatnot, but taking a lot of garments that have very specific constructions, like they have a gorgeous kind of 1940s like zoot suit where the tailoring is very distinctive and also very like, it is specific to a moment in time and to a group of people, being able to look at this garment and be like, all right, this is how this fits together, or looking at garments that are existing in kind of moments of cultural contact, like they have I want to say you have like a late 19th century, like quote unquote Victorian overcoat with the shawl kind of shoulders, but here it's for wearing over kimono. And they have one of those where they've taken that apart and be like, here's how this garment is adjusted to the way it was being worn. And these museums are run by generally nerds, and I love to give somebody their flowers for putting in that work, because it can be kind of forbidding.
Yeah, the other reference that was brought up in the back is like, right, the library we already mentioned, but half-price books, they'll have sometimes table books, right? So we've got.
Related to that,
Yeah.
don't look in just fashion. Look in upholstery, look in furnishings, look in history, look in art.
Yeah.
They will cover textiles in all those areas and give you an idea. Look in travel. I've got this fabulous book coffee table book on silk because of the regions and how silk traveled from east to west and how it evolved from that. So don't just focus on sewing or on fashion to find out about textiles and fabrics.
And I have a similar thing before, because I have a master's in apparel design, and when you're looking for, specifically moving back to that historical prints thought, is look for used textbooks on textile history. Because like, we all have to go through that class, and there are a lot of them, and they're pretty cheap because the publishers have to come out with new ones to get paid for more books, and so the old ones have like the same information. So yeah, look specifically for textbooks and you'll find some really good information in these events.
If you can find a copy of Cut My Coat for under $65, grab it.
I'm going to steer into a slightly different direction, since you're all very experienced in this kind of things. What shortcuts you can get away with, and what shortcuts would you say never, ever, ever do? I will say, okay, let's go with, you put a zipper in that, what? There's supposed to be something else.
Zippers.
You can get away with hook and eye tape. It's a great time saver. I don't use it often, but when I'm in a crunch. What you can't get away with is skimping on your petticoats. Everybody needs more petticoats. If we can see the hoops through your skirt, just throw a couple more petticoats on. You can't have too many.
Hook and line is how my lens makes waffle. Without hook and eye tape, I would never go.
Oh, you're on a points kind of. You're not into tying your little, making your little individual aglets, because I love that shit. I will say, especially for corsetry, anything where you're going to have eyelets, you don't necessarily have to hand sew them though. If you do like the kind of you crunch them in with a metal thing and then just hand one of those stitch over them, you can make them look pretty good. But being aware of especially if the instructions on a costume piece or the description of how something was made describes making a hole with an awl, using a hole punch is going to do something very different to the fabric which is the difference between kind of pushing a hole in between the threads and cutting off the threads in a circular fashion. Like you very literally take into a hole punch to it. Like that can cause more problems than it solves. But I'm also a huge fan of piecing. Piecing is period, but also piecing is a great way of allowing, let's say if you have a piece of fabric where it's like, this would be fabulous for this specific, like I'm going to do my, oh God, I don't even know what I would do. I'm going to do my 1870s Professor X cosplay, and I would love to do this, but I only have this much. Being able to use that for the front and piece the back is both lazy and period for basically all of the time until fabric gets, wider, shall we say. Also, repurposing garments is also period. And if you have a costume that let's say you're of different dimensions than the last time you wore it, it is totally fine to kind of hack and slash that into something, or to pass it down to another costumer and have them turn it into something they can use.
I love to joke about adding racing stripes to some of my old costumes. It works. It works. Another piece too is accessibility. It's a big thing that I'm very passionate about. So if you need a zipper to wear your fun historical outfit, as much as it pains me to see one in like a movie, we're not in a movie. We're going to a festival and running around in the dirt with our friends and maybe having too much alcohol if that's your bag. If it's not your bag, then you're eating maybe too many turkey legs. I don't know. I'm not here to judge our fun times. Please live your best lives. Life is short. If it saves you spoons to sew up the front of your vests, like I do when I make vests, do it. If you don't want to line something, don't line it. If you want to line it, do it. If you want to add cooling things or warming things or whatever your body needs you to do. If you need to use spandex, use the spandex. If people give you a hard time, let me know and I'll beat them up in a dark alleyway. In this outfit.
So if you do need to put in accessibility elements, I think that's awesome, and I would support that as well. However, if you're gonna put in a zipper, there's so many ways you can do it invisibly. There is literally an invisible zipper. I will also tell you, I saw a Regency costume once where there was a stomacher on the front, it was gorgeous. I said, well, where's the lacing? And she ripped the stomacher off, it was Velcroed on, and underneath the belt, there was a zipper up the front.
We are living in modern times.
That's a, but you can make it look good. You can
Yes,
hide those
1000%.
And to be fair,
1000%.
right, to be fair, accessibility is period.
Yes.
If you had to make your own dress, you're going to make your own dress so that you can put it on, because 99% of the population did not have.
To be fair, many of them had mothers or sisters who would help them get dressed.
Yes, but you're still very
But
different than
it's-
being laced into a back.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Well, and what they would do is they would pin theirs. So if you look at, there's a portrait of Jane Seymour, I can't remember who it is. One of Henry's brood. And it was a portrait of her, and I actually got in trouble at the museum because I had to get up really close, and I noticed that the artist actually put the pins in the front of her dress, the red dress. Yes. And it was so, because they closed their stuff in the front, and then they just pinned something over the top. So you don't actually have to, you don't have to backlace. And I cheat. My costumes, my final costumes at Renaissance Festival, when I was stilting out there, I had to do several modifications to them. One was to get myself in. I did want a front panel, so I was like really cheating to your face, and I did a back lace, and then I just put laces on both sides, metal grommets. Not gonna apologize, because I could lace myself into my dress, and it looked really good. I alternated gold and silver, so that it was like actually a fit as much as it was a fit. So I wore pants and the high-low skirt. Not period, but when you're stilting, you can't really get stuff in the way. Fire eaters at a festival, they all wear short sleeves half the time, or 3/4 sleeves. They're very tight. Not period, but they don't want to catch themselves on fire. So again, I think that, and especially when we're talking about mashups and stuff, I mean, sky's kind of the limit on that. If it's part of your mashup, then you have an excuse to do it.
And especially for drawing in aspects of fantasy, like I'm thinking of like Once Upon a Time right now, right? Or like Bridgerton. these are costumes that tell the story.
Yeah.
They give a nod to the history. Like, I love the Bridgerton, don't get me wrong, it's a great show. A lot of my friends are on the camp of, this isn't historically accurate enough, this is bad, and the other half are like, it's so fun and cute and lovely. Like, they're both correct, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
We can all have space at the table, and literally. But it's just such a fun thing, and it gives that nod to the history, it gives the acknowledgement, and it tells the story. But then you have adaptations that are just, why did you not take the time? Like, again, if I see a zipper in a show or a movie, I forget which one it was, but I saw a zipper in someone's like Renaissance dress in a professional movie, like big blockbuster, not even like small indie. 'Cause, if we're talking small indie, we're talking low budget, that's respectable. But if you're a big blockbuster, you can afford to hide your zippers better than that. Thank you very much.
In Bridgerton, if you notice, the more conventional the character, the closer to historically accurate their costumes are. So they get
Main character
syndrome.
syndrome.
Yeah,
The leading lady syndrome.
Yeah, I remember the lady frock flicks, if you don't know it, look it out, it's so much fun and snarky.
I feel like the common thread here with adjustments that we're making, like whether it's accessibility or whether you're stilting or working with fire, is that we know the reason we're bending the rules. What's that? Oh, the common thread here with whether we're changing things for accessibility or for function, like with stilting or with firework, is that we have a reason. We're bending the rules for a reason. It's not just we didn't know better or we don't care. It's we want to make something historical, but then we have a really great reason for why we're bending those rules.
We can make green now without arsenic, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
I know of a couple really good museum sites for costuming. One is the Strong Museum, which right now has the largest collection of costumes in the U.S. When I was down in Louisville, they're working on getting more and more uploaded. They've been collecting the things that other people don't want. And the other is the Victorian Albert out of Europe. Are there other ones that you would suggest we go to and drool?
The Met.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Great site.
The Minnesota History Center actually has a lot of their costumes digitized, their historical garments digitized. And I believe that you can also make appointments to go and check out some of them in person at the Minnesota History Center. You just have to tell them why you want to do it and write them a letter or something, and then you can go check some of those things out that aren't always on display.
There are also museum-grade suppliers for fabric if you're willing to pay, like, hey, I have to buy at least 10 or 15 yards. That's what we did for our full metal.
I want to give a shout out to the Kyoto Costume Institute.
Yes, that's, I was trying to think of the name of it.
And I also have pardon me?
Kyoto.
The Kyoto Costume Institute. They have great photos and a really interesting website, but also huge shout out to costumers who are working with a particular collection and will go through and be like, there's a I can't remember the person's blog, but they went through measuring skirt circumferences for a bunch of extant dresses they had access to, basically to go through and be like, all right, how much skirt do you need for this particular year, this particular kind of garment? What should you be expecting to, what kind of fullness do you need, not just visually, but in terms of textiles? And if you're in a position to work with an extant garment that way, and you share that info, you will receive many crowns of heaven.
This is a bit of an amusing anecdote, but also accessibility. The Navy's dress uniform has a flap for access for the men, with 13 buttons.
Oh.
Several of my shipmates applied Velcro. So the buttons were attached to the Velcro on the flap, so it still looked good. But in case you had some used beer to dispose of, you didn't have to try and fumble with 13 buttons. Also, there is an amazing museum in Istanbul, the Saatberk Museum. They have clothing from Ottoman era. I mean, basically that's very well preserved and displayed.
That sounds glorious. I'm like,
Any other questions? Oh, right here. Yes.
A little bit back to paper patterning. Do you have any recommendations on how to interpret a historical pattern that has no notes? It's just the outlines.
So what you really need is a basic knowledge of garment construction. And I feel like if you do any kind of modern sewing, then that is going to help you immensely. Because if you do any modern sewing, you'll find eventually once you've done enough shirts that you basically know how a shirt is made. There's lots of different ways you can do certain steps, but there's it's not infinite. So if it's just the diagrams and you don't have instructions, I would say fall back on what you know from sewing modern clothes, or even find a comparable type of garment in a modern pattern, see if you can follow some of those directions. And then if you can research historical construction methods, if you're aiming for that, books like Costume Close-Up. Costume Close-Up will tell you like which stitch was used in which part of the garment, and then there's a little diagram showing you how to do that stitch. And there's like, here's the layers of how the fabric is put together. Like for example, in Costume Close-Up, they discuss how 18th century jackets for women were not done with a bag lining. Like we're really used to bag lining in modern sewing. You make a jacket, you make the lining, you sew them together. Whereas 18th century jackets for women were the lining and the outer fabric constructed in one seam or like a two-seam process, flatlined, or there's this other crazy thing, maybe like they would backstitch through 3 of the layers and then hand tack one lining layer in. It's a really beautiful, fun technique. But then if you find books like that that can tell you here's how this was done, that can fill in the directions for you.
Another thing too, you might be able to, you might be able to find someone online who has made the pattern
I was
you're
just
trying to
going to
make.
say the exact same
Hey,
thing.
go
yeah.
team.
Google the pattern.
Yeah, especially like folks like,
Some of the people.
yeah, like Brenda Banner, Rachel Macy, they might have a how-to or how I made this or something, or there might be other creators out there as well.
blog posts are my favorite thing there, where somebody will go through and they'll say, oh yes, I was making such and such for my wife, and I used this pattern from this, Janet Arnold's Patterns of Fashion, or I think there's one of my favorite books that goes really in depth on construction for early modern men's, like, I'd say, for me, I'm like Jacobean, but like, yeah, early modern men's tailoring in Europe is Matthew Nagy's Modern Maker series, where he worked with a bunch of, I think, Spanish, kind of early modern tailors manuals, where the expectation is that you already know how all these overlapping pattern pieces fit together, and you're just using your weird tailoring system to make it fit, where there's a lot of tailoring systems that got published, especially in the 19th century and the early 20th century, where they're intended for home sewists, so what they expect to be common knowledge is not what we would consider to be common knowledge today, but that can also give you a glimpse into what kind of constructions and what kind of alterations they were working with, depending on your era. There's also, for early Victorian, I'd say 1830s, 1840s, the Workwoman's Guide is a very granular document, because the expectation is that you're a lady making clothes for, I guess, making charitable garments for the less fortunate, but they'll go through and be like, all right, you're making a flannel petticoat for a 6-year-old, here's how you make it so that they'll be able to use the bathroom. And it's like, awesome, fabulous. But documentation can be in weird places, but being able to scrounge is your best friend.
Facebook is a fabulous resource for experts. There are a number of really well-moderated groups that you want a well-moderated group that specify certain genres or certain areas. And there's a fabulous Renaissance Tudor era one. There's a fabulous one that goes from about 1800 to 1900 or 1920. But they share patterns. The Renaissance one has had the authors of Tudor Taylor participate. And Matthew Nagy, I don't know how to say his last name, that you were just talking about, has contributed to that.
Is that the Elizabethan costume group? Yeah. The Elizabethan costume group is one of the best moderated costuming groups out there.
Yeah,
They're
and
very good.
they focus on kindness between each other.
You can ask, people are like, this is a stupid question. And you'll, like the first 3 comments, well, not a stupid question, excellent question, let's answer it this way. Yeah.
So, you got a wealth of knowledge. You've got professionals like Tudor Taylor authors, to people like me who design a costume and then pay money to somebody else to make it. Because at 10 p.m., I will screw up the sleeves and the hem.
No one is fine.
I want to go back to blogs for a second too, because I feel like we're kind of living in the post-blog era, unfortunately. And when I was learning how to sew historical dresses in the late 90s, I read so many blogs, and I read dress diaries on people's blogs. And there were a lot of these people who are still active now today. And when people wrote out a dress diary, they're like, this is every single step that I used to make this garment. And I can't believe I forgot to mention that earlier. I'm so glad you brought that up. So also, if you are a costumer and you make things, I would highly encourage you to also carry on that tradition. Do one, take one for the team, do something for the rest of us, and post all your stuff on a blog. Don't just post the pretty finished pictures on the Instagram. We want to know the guts.
Well, to highlight that, if you want to compete in a costuming competition, 90% of them require proof of work for all of the things that you actually did. So like, for my Germans, I don't have that proof because I did it with them. But for example, like, okay, here's how I made my boots, here's how I made my waffles, here's how I made my hoses. Like, that kind of stuff, like the masquerade here, for sure, if you want to compete in that, they need to have that documented. Why have a documented printed piece? You need to bring it for me. It's digital, post it online. I can't tell you how many people, for the things that I'm still in progress on, 10 years ago, every so often people going, hey, are you still working on that Southern Cross armor? I'd really like to know how that's going, because you're the only person still thinking about this. It's like, oh, okay, somebody else is thinking about this too. So.
I make my own patterns, so like figuring out order and stuff is,
60% cursing and 40%.
Well, over the years you used to, there's a certain order of operations, I like to call it, with sewing garments. Again, you know I put together a shirt, but, and it depends on the garment as to what order you do, because there are very different patterns, especially if you're talking different areas of the world. But my hard and fast rule is always before you sew anything together, think about your closures and your pockets, because they have to go, like, the closures, if you do them first, are so much easier, and the pockets you have to do first a lot of the time, or you're in trouble later trying to put them in. So those are like my 2 things, like hard and fast rule, no matter what you're putting together, think first do I need to add pockets, because adding convenience to your costumes if you don't want to carry a bag that may be historically accurate around with you at con all day. But those 2 things are always your first concerns. Think about those first and then move from there.
In the back. I've got 2 in the back. So.
Learn how to make slippers. They help you out so much.
Slopers? Okay, I don't know that term, so.
It is making very general patterns based off of measurements that fit your body exactly. And then once you have these patterns that fit you, you can adjust them and use like historical / pattern methods to make garments outer size. And that way, when you have simple patterns of your own body, you don't have to adjust commercial patterns of your own.
Everybody do that?
No.
Slopers can be really handy. They're basically, if you didn't hear that, they're basically a pattern for the most snug-fitting garment that is suited to your body. So if you actually made a sloper, it would be like a sheath dress.
Yeah.
But you don't really make it into a garment. You just use it to alter your other patterns. They can be super great. A lot of people love them. I'm personally not a sloper fan. I like to do it in other ways. Any way that gets you to the result is valid.
It's a very excellent base and way to start, and that you can build off of or alter as you need.
Yeah, your 2 basic types of pattern making are slower draping and flat pattern. And to make your sloper, you drape it.
Yep.
And draping is basically just taking out a dress from our person and hitting it to them and drawing it, making it. And so if you can drape that sloper and then use that sloper for flat pattern. The main thing you kind of have to have flat pattern for is sleeves. Sleeves really have to be done it's very difficult to drape sleeves because most forms don't have arms. You can get an arm, but it's just like the way that the arms fit you really have to mess with flat pattern stuff. But I'm primarily a draper. I know people who really love flat pattern with slopers, but yeah, if you're looking for more information on those are the 2 terms you want to look for with books and tutorials and stuff is flat pattern versus draping.
Fast tip on sleeves. If you find a sleeve on a pattern, you've got one pattern that is your jacket base and one pattern is your sleeve base. You can take the arm side off of, or you use the arm side from the pattern that you're taking the sleeve from and overlay it on top of the pattern for the jacket that you're using, and then you don't have to sit there and futz around with remeasuring your sleeves and your arm side and everything. You can just lay it right over the top.
Also, just go through something that makes pull apart, use the sleeve pattern.
Yeah,
There's so many sleeve patterns.
Yeah, as someone who has a little,
Yeah.
and also someone whose weight has shifted significantly over her costuming career, learning to pleat and having adjustable things or hems that you can fold and twist and not have to remake the same outfit 15 million times, but can adjust it is amazing.
Yes. And this was something that was done historically. You see a lot of adjustability in garments. So this is something that real people dealt with in the past as well. Yes.
Yeah, my Irish jokes. I made it when I was 19, so it's a little tough.
Yeah, I
All
also,
right, last 5 minutes.
I was gonna say, and it definitely is a benefit for being able to adjust, but all the little stuff, they're like, oh, you can have a belt in the back so you can pull this in, or that, in addition to kind of allowing for normal fluctuations in weight and how your body shape changes, it also allows for layering in a big way, which can take a costume piece from one costume to another in a very fluid way.
I have these days I do the Granimal mode of costuming. The pieces I'm wearing today could go with, like, I've got multiple other pieces in blacks and the same red and gray, and I can probably, with what I've got, come up with, 20 different costume configurations. It's a really great way to go if you pick a kind of a color palette and you can just trade in and out pieces, especially in steampunk. That works really well.
Historical capsule wardrobe.
Yeah, essentially. Although I will say it's kind of hell when you're a Libra. What am I going to wear today? Oh, I can wear this, or I can wear this, or I can wear this. I make my husband pick my outfits.
One of the things that work for fair but doesn't always work for cosplay is that costumes are not costumes. Costumes are clothes.
Yes.
So I don't say I'm putting on my German costume. I say I'm putting on my German kit or my German clothes. So treat them like clothes if you're going to wear it longer than just a couple hours.
And that actually does work really well for cosplay, because like a big criticism, I mean, it's not just cosplay, but like movies and such, like Netflix, like the Avatar, The Last Airbender update, besides the racism, which not, insignificant, was also like this criticism of like these costumes don't look like their clothes, and it's because they don't have like dirt and schmutz on them. Get your stuff schmutzy.
2 minutes. One last question, or we'll...
My other last thought too is if you like it, do it.
Go for it.
Okay, so I think everybody does historical mashups. So what is your, I add this piece to my costume and it's a mashup? Like with steampunk, you add a corset, knitted, it's immediately, goggles! Like, so not steampunk,
Anything is
but whatever.
steampunk, you stick a pair of goggles on it. Anything is Renaissance if you stick burlap on it.
Stick what?
Burlap.
Hey, I have tennis shoes, but I forgot my boots at home. Burlap.
Put them in burlap!
I will say,
real.
if you do enough early Victorian stuff, you just gotta put a little blood on it, and now you're in the Dracula adaptation of your choice. I was gonna do a Nosferatu 2024 cosplay, and then I was like, it's hot, and I'm not in a castle, so just put a little blood on it is my answer.
For me, I like to, because again, I do a lot of gender bends, and especially for Renfest and Con, I like my stuff to overlap. So I'll wear the same outfit to the Renaissance Festival with like Ren boots from like Son of Sandler and such, but a vest, a really good vest. I love this other one. I actually got this here 2 years ago. I did not see the vendor here. I'm very sad about it, but that's okay. But yeah, Etsy's a great resource. I have this really beautiful floral doublet for Prince Rapunzel that did not make it with me this year, but again, yeah, so, we can connect later. We can exchange pictures and geek out, it'll be beautiful. I got you. But yes, whatever ties it to the period, and then you get to kind of work within the rules or break the rules creatively, and whatever brings you the most joy. But to get out there and do it. That's my big thing.
I would say, like, I like the poof and slash of that era, like the lunchtime era, so neon plus poof and slash is cyber.
I bet.
Perfect.
I don't have a great answer for this one because I do more straight up historical than mashups, but I'm going to answer it in reverse, which is what do I like to take from my historical wardrobe and mash up with my modern wardrobe, and that is 18th century shifts. Make a really great like little blouse to go under a jumper dress, and then I kind of feel like I'm doing a little history bounding without being a full-out historical.
And if you're picking an iconic character, like Super Friends, what I started with most of those is what's the icon? What is the symbol? So we did like somebody came up with Diego Barral in DC and Marvel, and so I made one for my husband. I went and got a baseball jersey that was black, and I stuck a Batman logo on it, and now it's Batman. So it's like you could just take something and slap a Superman symbol on it, and now you're Superman. As long as it's red and blue. So it's like that kind of stuff. If you figure out what is the key icon of the character, and then you find a way to incorporate that.
Did he appreciate the pun?
All right, so that's our time. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank you for making this such a successful.
Please like, comment, and subscribe.